Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Captain's Table. I am your host, the brand new NGDL4 champion, Captain B-Nard. Had to get it out of the way right away. And topic of discussion today is going to be, well, the NGDL4, a review and reflection of the draft league that just ended. And here to discuss that with me is actually the head of the draft league himself, the Killer Nacho. Welcome to the Captain's Table.
Hey, what's up? Good to be here. Like I said, I'm the Killer Nacho, and yeah, so congratulations again to winning that season. And yeah, so I guess that's all I really want to say right now. Um,
Gotcha. Well, thanks for being here. I do appreciate it. And so we're going to talk about the season that just ended of the draft league. It definitely was a pretty eventful season. A lot of interesting stuff went down, a lot of unexpected stuff that I think you would agree. It definitely turned out to be. Not what I was expecting, because I got to be honest with you, I was not expecting to be sitting here saying that I won when this whole thing started. Like this is definitely more than I ever expected.
oh yeah, it was definitely a magical run for you.
Oh yeah.
Taking out Viz, I mean, the way you did, I mean, it was well, unexpected. Um, it was an exciting match. Watching it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I do want to talk definitely about that when we get into the talking about what happened in the playoffs. But first, I just kind of want to go through a little bit what happened in the regular season, because that is just as important in my opinion. If we want to start with you, obviously, you see all my lovely graphics there on the screen. Kind of thrown together at the last minute, but that's about the quality of the workmanship you get here on the captain's table. If you want to go through starting with you since you're my guest, the regular season. We had 12 games each in the regular season. And actually, I think this is going to be kind of interesting because you and I did not cross paths at all in the regular season or in the at all in the entire season. So I thought that was interesting to kind of do
Yeah, you only
this.
play two people in each conference because we were not in the same conference. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
So it's I think it's interesting because it's almost kind of like going to be getting two perspectives from like two different sides of it.
right.
Um, but yeah. Going through your games, I don't know if there's well, I guess we should just start at the beginning then with the actual draft. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about the initial team that you drafted right off the
I mean,
cuff.
it was. I kind of expected right off the bat. It's probably one of the weaker teams I've ever drafted in any draft league. I of course someone bid up with the Pokemon I wanted in the draft right. Actually, the first one I wanted somebody took, and it was an Uber, so it's not like I was going to bid that up. And then Tapu Lele got bid up to $50, so I had to scramble a little bit to put together picks in the later rounds. I still
Yeah.
kind of wonder what would have happened if I decided to go with Victini instead of Charizard, but it was a pretty good season. I think it's probably the weakest draft I ever had, but I still ended up finishing a respectable 8-4. Can't be really upset about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I agree with you. I think it would have been interesting to have seen what would have happened there. My point of interest is actually because you had said that your original draft plan was going to be to grab Yveltal, which was actually, I don't know if I've said this before, but actually a Pokemon that I had my eye on too in the original draft for whatever reason. I guess this was just the season everybody was looking at Yveltal, and unfortunately somebody got to it before either of us did. And I know in your case that really forced you to kind of like shoot from the hip as far as what you drafted.
I wouldn't say shoot from the hip. I mean, I had some backup options. I mean, I wanted
Okay.
to go with an Uber kind of just because I went with an Uber in the NGDL2. I guess I just wanted to, and then of course I decided not to go with an Uber team in the other two NGDL. So it was more of
Yeah.
like a point of every other year I just was gonna go
Every
with an
other year
Uber.
for an Uber. Gotcha. Yeah, I kind of wanted to do an Uber also, just because. Well, my main concern was increasing my standing in in my positioning in the draft, because I didn't want to be kind of caught in the middle. Because in the last season, I was kind of caught in the middle of the draft, and I felt like that really hurt me as far as like which Pokemon I could pick up and like synergizing with the rest of the team and all that stuff. I thought it was. it was something that I wanted to do to try to get toward the top of the draft board. Um,
You
so
ended up in the middle-ish anyway, didn't you?
a little bit, yeah.
I
I
don't
kind
remember.
of because unfortunately for me, you see, here's the shitty thing was that two people, I believe it was, in the initial draft actually took two Pokemon, which means that they were going to be pushed above me automatically, and then somebody took a Super Uber. And then there were a few people who took Ubers that were ahead of me, so my plan kind of didn't really pan out as well as I had hoped.
Right.
Because I ended up, I think, in position 7 out of 16, lucky 7, I guess. But yeah, so I can understand where you're coming from though, as far as the overall draft. I would actually have to agree with you, even though I do think the draft that you had was pretty potent and pretty strong. Looking, having have followed you for a while and your previous drafts, I would agree that it was probably one of your weaker drafts. Even though it was still a good draft, obviously good enough to
I mean,
get
I
you.
guess did the best I could. I wasn't completely unhappy with it. The biggest
Right.
problem is it was kind of just a draft full of wall breakers. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of just something I had to deal with all season long. Is I both my Pokemon were all in that kind of like mid speed tier. So
Hmm.
some weeks I would just get completely outsped, and the next week, I would completely outspeed the opponent, but the opponent can wall me a little better. So it's I mean, when I had the speed advantage with my draft, it was really great because I had all those wall breakers, so it provided a lot of problems. But if I get outsped, I mean, it was games I had to just play around, and that's when those games started, going poorly.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there were definitely it was you were kind of in a situation with the draft that you had where it was just like either you were going to be in a really good matchup against your opponent or you were going to be at a pretty big disadvantage. There wasn't much of a middle ground. So
That's pretty fair to say.
yeah, and as far as my draft goes, because I guess I will get into talking about the initial draft that I had for 1 second here. So the one thing that I didn't like about my initial draft, and I actually liked my initial draft a lot, and I know you did as well. But the one thing that I didn't like about my draft was that I wasn't able to draft a ground type, which was something that I really wanted to try and like type balance everything. And like the whole time after I had picked, I think my first 7 it was, and I was extremely happy with the initial 7 I got with like the Dragon Very Steel Core and of course the Xerneas, which was only there because I couldn't get Yveltal and because Xerneas beats Yveltal and the guy who got Yveltal was in my division, so it just made
Right.
sense. But I was extremely happy with my first 7 picks, and then when I was going to go to 8, I was going to grab a ground type, and I feel like at the end of my draft, and I feel like a lot of people could say this is when you get toward the end of the draft and you get kind of slim pickings as far as like what you can actually afford and what's available. I feel like it kind of lost it a little bit at the end, and that's why when I made transactions, I kind of tweaked them, tweaked the edge of the team a little bit. But I know you were actually a really big fan of my original draft as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really excellently bulky draft. I really just liked the amount of bulk and how difficult it was going to be for especially certain teams to get around, which I think has benefited you a lot in the regular season.
Yeah, it did, and that was kind of the my goal was I kind of wanted to do like bulky offense was really how I geared this team more or less, and I was really happy with
So yeah, bulky offense is what you pretty much have to do in most draft leagues.
yeah, that is definitely true. Um, but yeah, so I guess if you want to start going into the matchups here, I don't know if there's any games off the cuff as on your side that you're thinking, that either made like a lasting impression on you, or that anything that
Oh,
you.
jeez.
I know you had week 1 was the battle with because I have it here in front of me, not because I have a good memory, but I know you played Quilliams week 1, which was kind of a prelude of things to come. While you were in the same division with him, so that was kind of like a big rivalry throughout this season that's maybe noteworthy.
Well, yeah, the rivalry with Williams, definitely. He was his. I felt his team like matched up well against mine all season. Now, the first matchup, I did have the benefit, obviously, due to the Tapu Bulu thing.
Yeah, that was pretty
Um,
funny actually.
yeah, Mr. Chabry gave me the advantage, but both of those wins I had against Williams were just really, really close games. He's a fantastic battler. I couldn't believe I actually ended up winning. both times. Now, obviously, I did have his number a little bit in the NGDL. He would eventually get. I mean, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but obviously, he would eventually get his revenge in the playoffs.
Yeah,
But no, I mean, it was really difficult matchups for me. In fact, I felt like his team matched up against mine better than anybody else in the league.
yeah,
So it was really rough to put them together, and he made some pretty bad mistakes in both of those matches that probably ended up costing him. As for the game, like the most memorable game I've had this season, it was probably the one against Sharpedo 43 because I had my back against the wall completely
you're talking about the
going into
regular
that
season.
matchup, and then I found out I forgot to I was ready to go. I feel like I had a good game plan, and then I look in my roster again just one last time and realize I didn't actually transform Charizard back into Charizard X. But
Yeah.
ended up winning that game anyway, and I just started putting some YOLO stuff in the team. Like I
Yes.
know it didn't actually end up mattering, but I had what was it? I had weakness policy Celesteela.
Nice.
Just
Just
why
in
not?
case. Yeah. Yeah. No. I. That was
I forget
we.
what it was that I was like. I know there was in my mind there was a Pokemon very specific Pokemon that I put weakness policy on for, but I can't remember at the top of my
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
head.
But yeah, you're referring to the Week 10 game with Sharpedo, and that was another thing I wanted to bring up as far as we both kind of were in a similar situation at one point in the draft league and at different times. And for you, it was in Week 10 when you played Sharpedo because like you said, your back was against the wall. It was kind of do or die time. I actually faced a similar situation. I believe it was Week 7 in the league versus Alice actually, because at that point I was sitting at 3-3, and I had a couple of people breathing down my neck in my division. Actually, pretty much everybody in my division, because I think my division ended up being the tightest overall division. But that was kind of my do or die time because I was sitting at 3-3 there, and I think you were sitting at what, like 5-4 in week 10 versus Sharpedo.
Yes, I remember. I started off pretty strong. I think I was 5-2 at one point. Then I lost two straight games down to 4-5. Sorry, 5-4.
Hmm.
And if I would have lost that game against Sharpedo, there was like two people waiting there to take my spot, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of I guess when you get put in that situation, it's really kind of like you said, it's do or die time. So it's time to either pull a rabbit out of the hat or go home. So I guess the other game I wanted to touch on, because I know, going back to the Quilliams games, I will say I think in the first game that you played him, I think you did have the edge because that was week 1 after that draft blunder that he kind of had. So that was definitely an edge. Then you played him again, and
I
I
had more of
think
an edge in that matchup. I still felt
yeah,
like he probably should have won, but
yeah. I mean, he maybe not. I don't know. I still think you were in pretty good shape. The other game time you played him was week
it was just a little bit later. It was
seven. Yeah, it was
still
week
early in the
7.
season. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like halfway through, and he had retooled his roster at that point. So that in that game, I definitely felt like he had the edge, but you were able to get the better of him there anyway, which was nice.
Okay, he made one key mistake, and even in the first game, he made one big mistake switching out that Raikou. I don't think I would have won if he didn't switch out the Raikou. I remember that.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, these games. I think all these games, or most of these games,
I
between
did a
not.
great job bluffing the scarf, apparently.
Well, hey, that's mind games, man. That's how you win games with mind games. It's a proven fact. Um, but yeah, I think the other game of yours that stuck out to me anyway throughout the season was actually your week 3, I believe it was, game against Visually. The one
Visually,
where
yeah.
you actually, yes, the one where you actually defeated him. You handed him his only regular season loss in that game, which was
Well, that
actually,
was obviously a rough matchup,
yeah, it really was. But I
but
think you got a pretty big. I think you got like a 4-0 in that game. So I was actually pretty, because Visually, I mean, I don't just I'm not just making this up when I talk about how good I say that Visually is. Like, I really do
no, for
believe that
sure he is.
he is one of the best I've ever seen in draft league. So, you were I was I mean, I respect you as a player, and I think you are a great player as well. But I was still kind of surprised at how you were able to get one over on him like that. Like he, kind of like he almost didn't see it coming, you know. So that game really did impress me. I have to say that win did. So
I mean, really, if this season you just had to shut down Arceus, you find a way to shut down Arceus. The rest of his draft is not if you see potent, but you just have to figure out a way to stop Arceus, and then it's off to the races. I mean, Arceus is such a versatile Pokemon, so it's a lot easier said than done. But I figured I would just build the team so that Arceus can't kill me,
yeah,
and go from there.
that seems like a pretty solid strategy to me. Um, yeah, I also did play Viz myself in the regular season in, I believe it was week 6. Yeah, it was week 6. In that game, I kind of knew when when I battled him that like I don't know, maybe this is a bad attitude to have, but like I kind of accepted that I was going to lose before I battled him because I just looked at his draft and I looked at my draft, and I didn't think I had a terrible matchup against him, but I just felt like he just knows what he's doing to such a level that it's hard to
You
try
were
and.
starstruck.
Yeah, a little bit. And to be honest with you, and you might not believe this, but to be honest with you, I don't really get that way. Really with anybody, but for some reason, just with visually specifically, because I just know what he's capable of in battles and in draft leagues, and I just know how good he is. That it's just kind of like whoa, you know. So,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, so yeah, I think as far as I don't know if you have anything else you want to add as far as the regular season for any of your games. But yeah, that's really what I know. We talked about the slump a little bit, but you had hit like toward like weeks 8 and 9, I think it was like kind of a slump as far as wins go that kind of put you in some hot water, and then you were able to dig yourself out of that, which was cool. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add about your regular season there.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Technically, I beat Quilliams a third time. Well, maybe not technically, but I know that he built the team that Skep Gandy tried to use against me.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
When
yeah,
was that?
that was an interesting match. Oh, that was when we played week 10. I want to say no, week 11. It was
Oh,
after the Sharpedo matchup.
oh, the Skep game. Oh, yeah, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, but you were able to get the win on that one too. So
Oh
there
well,
you
yeah,
go.
I dismantled him.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a pretty one-sided game.
Dismantled.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so I think the only other thing I want to talk about during my season, I want to mention a couple of things. So I did do a little bit of tweaking to my team, as everybody does. So in week 3, I believe it was. There it is. I transacted my um, whatchamacallit, my Caracosta for a Chinchino, which actually I bring this up because Chinchino is actually a Pokemon that ended up bailing me out in a couple of games. Specifically, I don't remember which ones, but I remember it put in a lot of work in a lot of games because I was running King's Rock. I like running a King's Rock set with Chinchino because of the skill link and the flinching and all that good stuff. And that ended up paying off in a few games. Can't remember which ones, but that was, I think, pretty neat. And I was pretty happy with the team at that point. And then I ended up making another transaction, I believe. I only made 2 transactions this season because
Oh,
I
I
was.
made quite a few.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know you made quite a few more than me, but I only made a few just because I was just pretty happy with my team overall, and I didn't think there was a ton more to be done. But yeah, so the last one I made was week 7, and that was trading my Pinsir for my Poliwrath. And actually, I bring that up because this game I do specifically remember because it goes back to what I was saying. In week 7, I was in kind of the same situation that you were in week 10 against Sharpedo. I was in that same situation in week 7 when I was facing Alice because I had pretty much everybody in my division breathing down my neck at that point, and I really needed to get a win. So I ended up bringing on Poliwrath to the team because it just seemed like a good addition for a PU Pokemon, and it ended up in that specific game with Alice in week 7. It ended up putting in so much work against her with because I ran a substitute set. And it ended up putting in so much work against her, taking down Fortress and something else, I think, Seismitoad, and then damaging her Tapu Lele. So it was actually pretty awesome, to because I think that's kind of the dream. I think for everybody is like you think that you're going to make a transaction and then you're going to immediately bring that Pokemon to battle with you that very week, and it's going to come up big and help you win. So
Well, yeah, there's two reasons you really want to make a transaction. One is if you take a look at your current matchup, and it's you just need something in order to push you over the edge. That was similar to my transaction for Floatzel.
right.
Pretty much, I brought it in just for the second Quilliams match to outspeed Infernape. That's pretty much the only reason
I was gonna
I
say because
actually used it. But
I don't think I really saw you use Float Cell like just about at all after that.
no, I did not use it again. But I didn't mind bringing it in. But sometimes you make a more permanent transaction. Like when I I gave up on Jirachi and I just went with Celesteela in the middle of the season.
Yes, I do remember that, and that
Well, not really the middle of the season. After game 2.
yeah, I was gonna say you did that pretty early, and I think that ended up working out in your favor pretty well.
Well, yeah, Celesteela went on to probably had the highest kills on the team, so it ended up doing a lot of work.
There you go. I was gonna say you can't go wrong with that. I think the only other match that I can think of at the moment of mine in the regular season that I want to bring up and this is actually kind of a backpedaling a little bit, is my week 1 game against Fulham. And I want to bring that game up because that game was pretty much like it was the closest game the entire season that I had had, because it ended. I don't know if you watched it or not, but it ended with we each had one. I had Hitmonlee, he had Greninja, and I got that epic, sweet 1 HP
Yeah, I
survive.
don't remember much about it, but I remember seeing it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got at the end of the match. I got the 1 HP survive on the water shuriken, and then killed him with an attack. So it just that just sticks with me. Like I feel like looking back on it, that might have been an omen of things to come for me, because I did. I'm not gonna lie. I'll be the first to tell you. I got a fair bit of luck this season. That was part of the reason that I was able to get where I got um, in the league. So, what's that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, that was pretty much it. Just the luck thing, and the getting the 1 HP survive was just kind of it kind of made me feel like I might have a little bit of luck on my side this season. And I think, like, whenever you have a game like that, I always like that, because it's like it doesn't get any closer than that moment. And I just think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, so I think that wraps the regular season pretty well. Um, so moving into the playoffs. Um, and I know we talked about this a little bit already, in your playoff stream, but we had a few additions to the teams going into the playoffs. I grabbed the Como O and the Galvantula, which actually came up huge for me, specifically in the finals. And then you added the Tapu Lele and the Blastoise to your team, which the Tapu Lele, I think, came up pretty big for you, at least in your
Yeah, definitely in the first game. One of the reasons I wanted to add it, obviously, was for the Marshada that I was facing in the first round. So
yeah.
it did change the dynamic there, but obviously it
Yeah,
wasn't big,
and that was
good enough.
that was a game that you had played with Sharpedo, and that was a game that I think pretty much everybody was kind of on board that you were in good shape to take the win on that one, and you did. I don't think that you were really. I mean, it was a close match. I think it was 2-0, but I don't think you were really ever in danger of losing that game the entire time you had
Yeah,
it.
it was a dominate. It was more dominating than the score would indicate.
Yeah, exactly, and I think a little more so than the regular season game as well. So, but unfortunately, then that would bring us to the semifinals, on your side anyway, and that was a little rough, to say the least. So I don't know if
Yeah,
you.
I mean, like I said, Williams. His team was incredibly fast. He had a bunch of fast sweepers. It outsped my wall breakers. So Um, and he added an excellent Pokemon in Thundurus to just exacerbate the issue. So
Yes.
I pretty much said all my thoughts on that video. It was dominating, and Quilliams deserved the win there, but his team, man, it's just way
It was
The team was
overpowered.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it was a fast team full of sweepers,
yeah.
against a bunch of wall breakers, which is what I told him in the start. Before he played you, it was like, man, if I would have been playing Captain B-Nard, my team would just bend his over, but yours.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think you definitely would have had a much better match if it would have been me and you in the finals rather than myself and Quilliams. You definitely would have had a much better matchup against me than he
Yeah,
did for sure.
your team is a team of walls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it definitely that would have been an interesting one. Um, but yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, and I don't want to, harp on it too much, but to be honest with you, I have to say I was kind of surprised. I mean, despite the fact that he did have a pretty sizable edge over you on paper, I still was kind of surprised that the match went that way because, I knowing you and having followed you for a while, I have a lot of respect for you as a player, and I think you're a very good player. And I guess I was expecting that you would have had like another couple tricks up your sleeve for him. You know what I
I
mean?
had a few tricks, but none of them really sprung.
Yeah, he didn't
I
step
got
on the
in such a
trap.
massive disadvantage early. It was well played on his end.
Yeah, he really. I watched that game, and he really did catch you off guard. And I think that's the key with a lot of these games, and it's hard to do, especially with seasoned players. Is it's hard to really catch somebody off guard like that, and he definitely he you can tell that he must have done so much prep and so much homework for that game before
Well,
he.
he was hungry. That boy wanted to win there. He wanted to finally overcome me.
Yes, you're right, and hunger is a great thing and is a great motivator, absolutely. Um, but yeah, he definitely it paid
He should
off
have
for
taken
him.
Celesteela. I told him to take Celesteela, but he didn't.
Yeah, that leads into the finals. I do want to go back a hair, a little bit actually, to me as far as the playoffs go because I had obviously my quarterfinal match versus Crash, and that was a game. I mean, I know I said this before on the playoff stream, but like that was a game that I honestly didn't know if I could win because not that I felt that I had a bad matchup against him because I didn't think I did, but in both of the prior games that we had played where he beat me, it was just kind of like I maybe I should have saw it coming, but I just didn't see it coming. Like I remember the first game, and I didn't talk about these, but the first game in the regular season, he beat me with a basically a Manaphy sweep is what it boiled down to because he got the tail glow and he got the Z Rain dance off, and
Mhm.
I just for whatever reason didn't see it coming, and he just kind of bent me over, and it was what it was. And then similarly in the second game that I had with him in the regular season, I started a calm mind war with him that I shouldn't have, and then same thing, I lost that, and he kind of bent me over. So um, I really wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't super confident going into the quarterfinal match with him, but like I said, I definitely think that I learned my lesson from those mistakes in the regular season, and I used that to kind of overcome him in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, it was yeah, well played.
Absolutely. And then moving into, I guess I want to spend a little more time talking about the semifinals and the finals matches. So the semifinals versus Visually, that was a game. And I already mentioned how I feel about Visually before. Probably the only guy in the entire league that I would, as you put it, maybe get a little starstruck, playing and just think that like, wow, like how am I going to overcome this guy? And I remember prepping for that game and just thinking to myself, like, I have to lose that mentality for this game. Like, I can't go into this game thinking, like, oh my God, it's Visually, I'm going to lose. I have to go into this game thinking he might be a great player, but he is beatable, you know?
Yeah. I
And
mean, you have to go in confident, otherwise, why play?
absolutely, yeah. And that's what I did, and I felt like I made some tricky sets for him a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, there were two specific moments at that game. One in particular that really swung the game, and those were there were a couple of crits in that game. And I actually
Yep.
think the first crit on the Vile Plume. and then there was the second crit on the Arceus. Now I do want to explain this because I feel personally that the first crit on Vileplume was actually a lot bigger of a deal than the second crit on the Arceus, and here's
I mean, I
why.
thought both of them were pretty bad, but
Yeah,
go on.
they were both definitely big momentum swings for sure. But here's kind of my thought process. So, he after we talked and he had explained like the spreads and everything, it was confirmed that I wouldn't have been able to two hit KO the Vileplume on without a crit. So
Well, definitely not.
right. So the fact that I was able to take care of the Vileplume so handily really hurt him as far as like answers he had for a lot of the rest of my team. So and he definitely, like I said, having definitely survived that, then he could have done a whole bunch of stuff and been off to the races. So um, contrast that with the other situation where you have at the end of the game, I had Cresselia set up at +2 special attack and special defense, thanks to Calm Minds, and then Scarfed actually thanks to his own trick, which I thought was just the funniest thing, when he did that, because I think you said this before, is that if you get greedy, you will pay, and I definitely learned from Fulham because I'm pretty sure you watched this game, the quarterfinals match of Fulham versus Visually,
Mm.
where Fulham got kind of greedy with Calm Minds, I think it was on Visually, and then he ended up getting critted and losing, so he paid for being greedy. So I made my mind up when I was battling Visually specifically that I wasn't going to get greedy with boosting. Um, so when I cut off, and started attacking with the Cresselia, it just so happened that I ended up being choice scarfed into an attack, which was actually good for me. So, +2 choice scarf Cresselia was an
Well, I assume that you
unlikely.
predicted the trick.
I did, yeah. I mean, I was either predicting a trick or something like that. I figured there was no point in going for another boost, so I had a feeling something like that was coming. So I did. I didn't want to get caught with my pants down. So
Yeah, it's one
and
of the premier things that Rotom can do is tricks.
exactly, yeah. So I didn't want to get tricked, pun intended. So, but yeah, so at that point in the game, having the Cresselia at +2 with the scarf was pretty strong, and I actually with the sets that we had, when the crit happened on the Arceus at the end of the game there, I believe from the calc actually had a chance to take it out on a high roll as well. So that would have been a thing, and another thing that would have potentially swung that game would have been if I would have gotten a special defense drop off the Psychic. So actually, his plan at that point in the game was to basically get the burn damage and basically stall me out to the point where the Cresselia would go down to either the burn or then he could revenge kill with the Zygarde, I think was his last Pokemon. So he would have had to, I did the math, and he would have had to, I think, stall me approximately like 6 to 7 turns, I want to say. And he would have had to take 6 to 7 attacks from my Cresselia, and there'd be no crit, no special defense drop, no high roll, essentially, for me to take the Arceus out at that point. So I feel like the crit on the Arceus didn't. I mean, it definitely was a huge momentum shift. I'm not going to say it wasn't, but there were a lot of other things that could have happened over that 6 to 7 turn period that would have basically made the game end the same way it did. So that one I don't feel quite as bad about. You know what I mean? But I don't know if
Okay,
you
I
want.
hear you,
Yeah, I
but
don't know if you want to weigh in any farther on the game versus Visually. I think I want to say I played really well in that game. I don't think
you
I.
played well.
Yeah.
I think you. I mean, you can't be blamed for crits.
Oh,
I
of
mean,
course, yeah.
I think if the crits hadn't happened, I mean, the Vileplume thing was huge. Because
Yeah.
Vileplume doesn't go down easily. It has the reliable recovery. Getting rid of it early on was just so huge. I'll
Yeah.
agree with you that it was bigger than probably the crit on Arceus, but I think both of them. The crit on Arceus pretty much sealed it.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
just kind of like the final nail in the coffin there. Was that? But yeah, the Vileplume crit was. I mean, that would have been an entirely different game at that point if there wouldn't have been that crit on the
I think
Vileplume.
he would have had a hard time getting around Arceus. Getting around, well, definitely Arceus, but Vileplume otherwise, because that
Oh
Vileplume
yeah.
just was so core to his defensive setup.
Yeah, I mean the only thing I'm trying to think back to exactly what else I had on my team, and the best counter I had for the Vileplume was actually the Cresselia. So that was kind of, if that had failed, then my kind of plan was to go into Cresselia from there because I wasn't obviously expecting
But
him.
yeah, without the Cresselia, if the Cresselia was worn down a little bit, you wouldn't have been able to set it up late. So
Yeah, I was
it's
just gonna say, yeah. So it definitely, like I said, would have been an entirely different game, and there is a very high probability that I would not have come out on top. So, but as we know, luck is definitely an
for
undeniable
sure.
factor in the game of
It
Pokemon.
doesn't take any. It doesn't take anything away of how
Right.
you made no obvious mistakes.
Yeah, and that was all you. That I think that's all you can do really. Is you just play your
Put
best
yourself in a
game.
position to win, and you did.
Yes, exactly. So, and that brings us to the final game, actually, which of course was myself versus Quilliams. And this game, I have to say, I was definitely. I don't want to say that I was super confident going into this game, but I was definitely more confident going into this game than I was going in against visually, because I feel like I had defeated, and by the I did want to mention actually that was the first time I had ever beat visually, which was a pretty big deal for me in the semifinals. Um, but going into the finals against Quilliams with the team that I had, I felt pretty confident in the matchup on paper. I felt like I had a good matchup, despite the fact that his team was just so strong and so versatile. Um,
Yeah, I was worried about that just because of your team does not go down usually in the first hit. So you had the bulk that his faster sweepers you're gonna have some issues with just on paper.
Exactly. And the thing that kind of surprised me, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but the thing that kind of surprised me about his team that he brought to the game is he actually went like bulk. It's almost like he tried to out bulk me in his sets and like what he brought to that game, which was really kind of a surprise.
Yeah, I don't think Quim's game plan going in was a big deal. In fact, I think he actually had a pretty good game plan going through.
Hmm.
He made a couple, just questionable plays during the game itself that I think really cost him. The chief of all, those being letting Komalo just bend him over in the very beginning. It was
Yeah, getting the +4 dragon dances was definitely this scary
and he was
situation.
talking about it, after the game, after I found out the result, after I did the narration, and
Hmm.
the thing that stood out to him is like he was trying to go with the flashy play with the middle tank, even though he had literally set up his what was it, his slow king to counter in that situation. Like instead of going into middle tank, if he would have went into slow king, there'd be pretty much nothing to do. So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, that
so he kind of beat himself trying to be flashy.
Yeah, I mean I kind of and that was the obvious. I think I saw that coming a mile away. So my game plan, I'll just say this. My game plan going into that game was simply this. I looked at, and you might be surprised to hear me say this, but I actually did not expect him to bring Miltank to that game. Didn't expect it.
Really.
I thought he was going to leave it behind, but I guess I should have known better because that is his signature Pokemon, basically, right? So
Well, aside from Quillfish.
yeah, exactly. So I really should have anticipated that he was going to bring it, but for some reason I didn't think he was going to bring it. So, ironically, and you're probably going to find this funny too, is that no Pokemon on, because I know he had the Choppleberry counter on the Mill Tank for probably specifically Como O, but for whatever else also. Um, but I actually did not have a single fighting type move on any of my Pokemon in that game.
Yeah,
Not
I
even
believe it.
Como O, because I looked at his team and I looked at the matchup and I thought, okay, I don't for whatever reason I just didn't think he was going to bring Miltank. So I was like, and I looked at Como O and I was like, okay, well I need Earthquake for Magearna, I need a Dragon move for Garchomp, which was going to be Dragon Claw because I didn't want to lock myself into Outrage knowing he had the Magearna. Um, and I didn't, and the other move was going to be Thunder Punch because I needed something for the Slow King, and he had another Pokemon that was weak to Electric as well. I don't remember that I was worried he would bring. I can't even remember what it was, but yeah. So that's why I chose because I thought that those three moves actually provided the best universal coverage for his team. Um, So my mindset going into this game was actually I wanted to lead with Como O because I thought that if Como O I could get like one or two Dragon Dances off with Como O, then I could just go to town. And I figured that there was a fair chance. Oh, Araquanid, that was the other Pokemon that I was worried that he would bring that would potentially.
I don't even know why you swapped for Overacron. It makes no sense to me still.
Yeah, I actually, when he did that, I kind of, to be honest, I breathed a sigh of relief when he did that because, like, I was worried he was going to try and bring in another Steel type, which obviously with Xerneas in play is very bad. But the fact that he didn't do that, I was very happy about that. But yeah, so when I opened the game, I was not like originally my goal was not to just Dragon Dance to hell with Como O, but like the opportunity presented itself, so I was like, why not? And I actually I did the calc, which is something that I don't often do in game. I'll do a lot of calcs, pre-game, but I don't usually run calcs in game. But I did because he revealed that he had the counter for me. So I actually calced that even with max attack, and I had life orb on Como as well. I actually needed +4 to guarantee a one-hit kill on the most defensive set of Miltank, because it is pretty damn bulky. So
Well, tank's a tank.
yeah, absolutely. So that's why I Dragon Danced. In case anyone was wondering why I stopped specifically at 4 Dragon Dances, that was why, because I needed exactly +4 to one-hit kill the Miltank. Um, but yeah, I feel like the one other thing that sticks out to me about that game, or in the beginning of that game anyway, is the fact that so at the last turn, like when I was Dragon Dancing up, and he finally wised up to that, I wasn't gonna attack him, and he toxicked me rather than going for the counter. I was just thinking to myself, and I know the odds were low on this, but I was just thinking to myself, what if he missed that toxic?
You would
Like,
have went and got 6 to him straight up, probably.
exactly, that was the answer. Is like, so he would be staring at a Como O at +4. There's nothing that's going to serve with the set that I had. There's nothing that was going to survive an attack from that.
I mean, maybe Slow King. I don't know if Thunder Punch would have killed the +4 if his set was right. I
I don't
haven't
think it would have
counted.
survived. I mean, I'd have to calc it, but I don't think that it would have survived a +4 Thunder Punch from max attack plus life orb.
Probably not. The Thunder Punch is a pretty weak move.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, we can't say for, unless somebody calcs it, we can't say for sure. But I personally,
Yeah.
I don't see it. So yeah, but I mean, I know, like I said, the odds were low that were to happen, but that was just like knocking around in my head for the rest of the game. Was I was just
Right.
thinking like, what if he missed that toxic? I would have 6-0'd him and it would have been over. But
Most likely.
yeah, but I will say, because I know I talked to him post game actually, and he did beat himself up a little bit over the thing in the
You would have had
beginning.
a 62.5% chance to kill Thunder.
Really, damn, that's Slow King's more physically defensive than I thought. Then
I mean, assuming that the Slow King was max defense, max HP.
gotcha.
Who
Yeah.
knows? I don't know what his set was on the top of my head.
I think I want to say, and I didn't get the set off him after, but I believe he was running more of a specially defensive set, but I'm not positive.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I know I talked to him post game actually, and he had mentioned that he was kind of upset about like the beginning of the game and the plays he made. But I was thinking, I don't know that I could really fault him for anything he did, especially because he was upset specifically about the way Garchomp went down and everything and sacking the Garchomp. But I told him, I said, to me he made the right play because he had to, at that point you're staring at like a +4 Como O that has
He should have toxic the Como with the first turn. That's
yeah,
what he should have done.
that was really the mistake, honestly, was he should have toxic sooner. But I mean, at that point when Como is set up, and but it is on a timer because of toxic, you figure you have to sack probably at least two, maybe three mons to it, depending on
If he decided to go in a Mill Tank, obviously he knows that he's going to live one hit with the Chople.
right.
There's a real possibility that you did go for a close combat from his perspective.
Oh yeah,
But at the
absolutely.
same time, you have Pokemon to deal with a +1 Como O.
Yeah,
So just go for the safe toxic. I mean, there was a few times, get him giving up Raikou, for example, for no reason whatsoever.
toward the end of the
Um,
game. Yeah,
yeah, that was the nail in the coffin for him. But the Como, you got so much advantage early. He wasn't able to really claw himself back.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, and I don't mean to sound cocky by saying this or anything, but like after that initial the trade with Como, because I believe I knocked out Garchomp and Thunderous with the Como O, and then I went down to
hey,
the Life Orb.
my daughter is actually crying upstairs. I
Oh,
should go
geez.
check on.
Oh, yeah. I know you do what you
So
gotta do.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I do have to cut this off, but
No, it's okay.
congratulations again.
Oh, thank you. I
Um,
appreciate that. I appreciate having you. Do what you got to do. Parent duties are definitely more important than Pokemon duties, so no hard
yep.
feelings.
Yep. All right. So take care, man.
Yep, you too. Thank you.
All
Thanks for
right. Bye.
being here. See ya. Alrighty, so the Killer Nacho signing off, ladies and gentlemen. So I will close out the show myself. And thank you once again to the Killer Nacho for being on the show. I appreciate it. So, just some general stats that I wanted to go over with the Pokemon that I had this season. Um, so, um, there you can see all the Pokemon toward the left-hand side of the screen, and then you can see their kill to death ratio, and of course how many games they appeared in on. In the season. So, as you can see, really the cornerstones of this team were the Xerneas, the Gudra, the Mega Aggron, and then to a slightly lesser extent the Incineroar. Pretty much my top four picks. Just really great Pokemon, as we said. Great defensive synergy. And all that good stuff. So, I was pretty happy with the way everything turned out. Definitely Xerneas being the MVP of the team, although can't take anything away from any of the other Mons on the team. Everybody certainly did their part to go ahead and get us to the promised land, which is something that I didn't think was going to happen. To be blunt about it, um, I didn't think I thought I was going to do good. I loved my team from the start, and I did think I was going to do good. But this was even more than I expected. So I am happy to once again reveal to you guys the NGDL4 champions, the Philadelphia Pidgeys. There you go. I have my own custom trophy, all nice and high def there, as you can see. but um, but yeah, that pretty much wraps the season. It was a great season. I know a couple final thoughts I want to share with you guys. Um, I last time I did one of these videos was after the NGDL3, and I had said that I was kind of disappointed with my performance in that league, which I was, and I said that I wanted to join this next season of the draft league to go ahead and um, try to find some redemption, and I pretty much found it in the biggest way possible, and winning the entire thing. And like I said, I mean, I hate to keep saying this, I really do, because this is not, lack of confidence on my part, because like I said, I am confident in myself. I did love my team from start to finish in this league, but there are just so many variables in the game of Pokemon that you just can't account for them all. There's so much luck in the game of Pokemon. You have high rolls, you have critical hits, you have secondary effects activating off of moves, you have misses. So um, there's just so many variables to take into consideration when playing the game that I did not expect this. I did not expect to be, here as the winner of the NGDL4, but I am ecstatic about it. It is really awesome thing for me, and I just want to thank everybody who has supported the Philadelphia Pidgeys throughout the entire season. We made it. We did it. Fly Pidgeys fly, and all that good stuff. But yeah, I think that wraps the discussion on the NGDL4. It was a fun season. It was a roller coaster, and yeah, yeah, that's what it was. Um, so yeah, as far as the future of Captain B-Nard and the channel, that is something that I had mentioned that I was going to address briefly in my last video. So for right now, I am going to be going back to just doing fun battles essentially. So I'm going to be making some new teams for you guys, and I'm going to be trying to crank out some entertaining battles with those. I'm also going to be continuing to do more episodes of the Captain's Table, of course. And yeah, so business is pretty much going to return to norm, to the usual, starting after this. So that pretty much covers it. Thanks for watching again, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, and/or subscribe if you did enjoy, and stay tuned for more new videos in the future. I want to thank the Killer Nacho once again for joining me here to discuss the season, and also, you know, to talk about everything, and also endorse my victory. I does mean a lot. I do appreciate it. And yeah, so that is it, and we'll see you next time.